Thank you so much. So Gershon Sirota, again, is the name of that voice. So also the title of the piece. And he perished in the Warsaw Ghetto. So the next piece I'm going to play for you is Mozart Fantasia in D minor. I'm sure many students here play this, or will play this, or have played this. And but before that, I'll just read you a little bit from the Odessa chapters, the early chapters of this book. This is my childhood, how I grew up to be really, I think, who I am. And I think those childhood years are so important, which is why this festival is just totally amazing. It's incredible to hear so many gifted young artists. And I call you young artists even if you're 6 years old and above that, because you all have this beautiful purity that you share. So we all want to keep that when we get older. So I'll read to you just a little bit before we left Odessa, before we immigrated, because like many people from elsewhere, and that's kind of what unites us. So also, this is the beginning of a love story. And the love story comes back later, but just dive right into it. My best friend, Shpilka, aka Misha, began to walk me home from school at the beginning of our friendship in first grade. He carried my backpack, which, in Soviet grade school, is one step away from an engagement ring, really. Our classmates laughed at it, but he didn't care. In fourth grade, he still did it every day. Once, Misha dropped me off at my apartment complex. He suddenly looked perplexed and a little angry and said, "You know, you asked me something a few days ago and I said no. Well, I meant to say yes." And I pretended I didn't hear him because the cruel streak in me had to hear him say it. I pretended I didn't understand. "What are you talking about?" "You said that I was in love with you, and I said that I wasn't." "Well, I am." I hadn't planned a witty response to this, so the words just hung there in the air like a cartoon caption from one of his drawings. We mumbled goodbyes and I ran upstairs to the second floor. My babushka, great-grandmother, sat in her armchair as always, waiting for me. I came in and shouted, "Misha just told me he's in love with me." "You're 10 years old. This is too young," she responded predictably, with kind, cackling laughter. Later that evening, though, babushka cried alone in her room. I heard her through the thin wall and entered. "What's wrong?" "You're leaving me, Inechka. You're leaving for good." "No, I'm not. Where am I going?" Despite the English lessons, overheard conversations about immigration, I still didn't know that we were leaving. When I asked my dad, he explained to me that we had to, because of anti-Semitism, because he didn't want us to live in a country of lies, a dictatorship, a failed experiment. They were tired of meaningless slogans, of standing in lines. He and Mom wanted me to have a future. I didn't get it, though. But nonetheless, just a few weeks later, we left. On my last day in Odessa, my friends, their parents and mine, had gone to the seaport, walked the seaport promenade, ate ice cream, looked at the Pushkin monument. I then began to realize that perhaps I had my bohemian paradise all along in Odessa. And the next morning, we left for the rented bus that would take us to Vienna, the first leg of our long journey to the US. Maiden's Wish by Chopin Liszt. I know that's down a little bit in the program, but I'm going to play it for you now. The reason for that is I actually wanted to add this piece. It connects me to one of my very first teachers, probably my most important teacher, whom I've had from age 10 to age 18, Emilio del Rosario. And the beautiful thing is that Chingwen, who's here, wonderful pianist, she was also in his studio, so he's impacted many, many lives. And I just want to mention a few words. There's a whole chapter about him, but I'll just say a few words. Through introductions from friends of friends, we visited a number of Chicago area music teachers because we immigrated to Chicago, and everybody recommended Emilio del Rosario. We heard of this man while still in Odessa. His reputation for teaching children and teenagers, making the highest level pianists out of them, reached us all the way there in Odessa. One morning, he phoned and invited us to come see him at the Music Institute of Chicago, the music school where he taught for many years. The door creaked ajar. A joyous, high, fizzy voice greeted me with laughter. I noticed that the shape of his face was very round, his head slightly square, dark skin, oodles of smiling wrinkles, intense, luminous brown eyes, perfectly shiny black hair. He exuded immense kindness. He invited me to the piano, and I launched into my program right away before I got too nervous. And after I finished, he extended his hand to me. Stubby, hard chunks for fingertips, and not even. And he said, welcome. And so I joined the tightly knit group of Mr. D students. That's what we called him, Mr. D. So I had a really hard time in school when I just immigrated to this country. As a foreigner, in fact, I often heard things like, why did you come here? Go back to where you came from. We don't want you here. It was a very privileged area where this school was located, and I really had trouble adjusting, but I had a wondrous, incredible life in the studio of Mr. D. My very first few lessons rang with cryptic, strange exclamations. Thumb under, use the wrist, weight in the fingertips. That's my nice poem. We've had all of them. Weight in the fingertips. I couldn't make out the separate words, but somehow I knew exactly what he meant. My audition piece for him was Chopin Liszt's The Maiden's Wish, and the wish came true. next piece, some of you heard it yesterday in my talk. And so fast forward many years, I'm at Peabody Conservatory and going on tour with the Youth Symphony Orchestra. And we're playing Rhapsody in Blue in Russia and in Estonia. So the funny thing was that I had to also translate for the entire symphony orchestra because I speak Russian and they didn't want to hire a translator. So we were supposed to go into St. Petersburg, into Russia, cross the border in the middle of the night by train. And so it's me, about 60 young orchestra players, and some of their parents, and the conductor. In the evening, we settled into our shared compartments. The train took off, lulled by its rhythm, exhausted after the sleepless night, an emotional concert. I quickly fell asleep. I woke up around 2 o'clock in the morning to Jason frantically knocking at the compartment door. Jason was the conductor. The train was stopped. I'm so sorry to wake you. We need your help. What's going on? We're crossing the border and there seems to be a problem. We just don't understand what it is. We've been here for over an hour. I wasn't destined to get any sleep on this tour. A Russian border guard with a handsome crew cut and a gun was swearing at me. Russian swear words, there are a lot of them. They're so rich. It's almost like a separate language, one that I did not and do not speak very well. My confused stuttering didn't help matters. Finally, the guard shoved a picture in my face. It was of Madeline, our principal cellist, holding her cello in one hand and a white, long-haired kitten in the other. Кошек нельзя, запрещается, the guard said. No cats, forbidden. Why Madeline, usually so methodical, decided that it was okay to take a picture with her cat as an official document for her cello, I'll never know. I pleaded with the officer, please, these are students. Her cello is right here and the cat is home in America. But for some reason, the mention of America only made matters worse. The guard shuffled his fingers together and put out his hand. He needed a bribe, and only then would the train move forward. This was turning out to be one expensive kitten. When I explained this to our conductor, Jason, he was shocked. Is that allowed? That's not even legal, is it? I reminded him that this was Russia, the most corrupt place possibly on the planet. We roamed up and down the corridor, collecting a 5 here, a 20 there, and one of the mothers cried, will they arrest us? Not this time, I said. Not if you have cash. I gave the officer a stack of oily American bills. The train emitted a triumphant screech and everyone applauded. In 2 minutes, we were in Russia. last very short bit. And this, no book is really fun without a, big Hollywood-style Hollywood-style love story. Not Russian love story, I guess Ukrainian in a way. So, what happened was that little boy, I'm going to give it away, the little boy in the beginning that I mentioned, he's now my husband, we have 2 kids. They both play music. There's a chapter in here that tells you how that all happened. And it's quite romantic, so hence the Polonaise-fantaisie. At some point, he moved to Israel, while of course we moved to the United States. And many years later, he decided to find me. And find me he did, by email. And then he decided he wants to come and meet me in France, where I was performing at a festival. And we didn't exchange any photos. We didn't know what we looked like, what we sound like. This was before cell phones. And Toulouse is a beautiful city in the south of France, where these concerts I was playing were. And that's where he came to see me. Inna? A thin, athletic guy with clever, kind eyes, slender, elongated features, a giant backpack, serious sideburns, was hugging me, and I spoke the requisite phrase we agreed on as our code. Can you please draw me a sheep? To this, he took out a folded paper with a pen drawing of a sheep eating grass on a small planet, just like The Little Prince. I hope you've all read The Little Prince. I drew this on the train, he said, and we still have this picture framed in our room. On the train to my next performance, I looked into his face carefully and saw ages reflected in it. A hint of my great-grandmother's eagle nose, black and white photographs of our class and school, the brown square backpacks we wore in 4th grade. But these were fragments. I couldn't place the boy within the man, or vice versa, and this collision of images, then and now, was making it hard to breathe. More than anything, I suddenly wanted to be by the piano, to play like I was in a forest, walking by an ancient, clear river, following it blindly, listening to it, letting it lead me away to the one thing that was constant and unchanged within itself, the music.